Good morning. Let's go back to 1954 for a film called Rear Window. Now, Rear Window is one of Alfred Hitchcock's most well-known films, released in 1954. It stars James Stewart and Grace Kelly. It's set in the rear room of a flat, the residence of a professional photographer L.B. Jeffries, known as Jeff, played by Jimmy Stewart. He has recently broken his leg and is in a wheelchair and basically doesn't go anywhere. Although with today's accessibility standards, this would probably mean that he could have gone anywhere he wanted to, and quite fast too. He spends the hot summer heatwave observing the view from his flat, looking out of his absolutely massive, gigantic, huge rear windows at the courtyard and opposing flats and the goings-on through their slightly more realistically sized windows. He has handy all his professional photo gear, obviously, and also some binoculars to help him casually observe with greater precision. Now, among the photo equipment is a 35mm SLR with a very long telephoto lens. The camera is it's one of the very first 35mm film SLRs. Now, up until that point in time, most professional photographers would have used a rangefinder for 35mm film, and amateurs also, but they would be more likely to be using a scale-focusing 35mm fixed lens camera with that has an uncoupled viewfinder just for framing. The 35mm camera body that Jeff is using in this film is an Exacta VX, which was a German camera. It came either with a flip-up waist-level finder for the focusing screen, or could be fitted with a pentaprism over the focusing screen to enable eye-level viewing, eye-level shooting. And this was long before Nikon or Canon were building this plan of SLR design. The Exacta represents possibly the first 35mm SLR in this particular layout. All the others would then follow this body plan. The one exception was that the Exacta had the film advance on the left side and the shutter release on the left side also. Shutter release was part of the lens assembly, the lens mount. And this would suit me perfectly, as one of the problems that I find with modern day SLRs and indeed DSLRs and even rangefinders is that they're all built for right-handed people and therefore ridiculously difficult to use with precision. In the film, the name Exacta on the top of the pentaprism is taped over with a black fabric tape, so you never actually see the brand of the camera. Jeff, as a professional photojournalist, he would have typically used interchangeable lens rangefinder cameras. Most of them would have done that for 35mm, and of course also various medium format cameras such as TLRs and SLRs. I myself am a very big TLR fan. I've got lots of very nice TLRs, including a Mamiya C330 and 5 different lenses for it. But most TLRs are not interchangeable lenses. And as we'll see later in the film, Jeff would have probably also been using field cameras, which use sheet film, such as Speed Graphic, Ground Graphic. However, he was obviously keen to keep abreast with the latest developments as a working photojournalist, and this is a 1954 film. So he would have realistically gone out and bought one of these Exactas, the first 35mm SLR with an eye-level pentaprism finder. That would have been an obvious thing to invest in, and it had only been on the market a couple of years. The long telephoto lens in the film is probably a Killfit f5.6 400mm, which is a bit long for what he was trying to do, but if he's using it to shoot car races, and which is how he broke his leg, it is a fairly small aperture lens, and a photographer shooting a car race might drag the shot by panning with the car, pan with the motion of the car, so that the background blurs and the car stays relatively sharp. But anyway, in this situation, the tele lens on the Exacta VX allows him a closer view of his neighbours than the binoculars do. He didn't seem to actually take any photographs during the entire film. If he did, he would have to reposition his left finger onto the release. The release is near the lens mount, not on top. At no point does he hold his finger near the release at all. You'd have to, as I say, press the release and then wind on and cock the shutter again, all with your left hand, which is good. And that lifts the reflex mirror into position to be able to frame the next shot. So never shot a single frame, or at least we never see him do that. As I say, the Exactor used 35mm film, but in a reverse way to most 35mm film bodies of the day. Those would have been rangefinders such as Leica and Contax, or even the early Olympus and early Nikon rangefinders. The Exactor took the film from the right and fed it into another canister on the left. The only other 35mm camera that I can think of that runs the film that way is the Olympus Pro ZLR series, such as the IS-1000, IS-2000, IS-3000. I have a IS-2000. I had a 3000. 3000 was a bit too big for me. And they sit the film canister upside down on the right, further forward than the film plane, and then feed it into the left side before rewinding it. A very strange arrangement. Well, it's actually probably quite a good arrangement. Instead of being wide, it tends to make it more compact that way. The Olympus Mu 2 also does this, feeds from the right into the left and then back again. My Mu 2 has some amount of light leakage now. The last time I used it was over 10 years ago, and I suspect from it, I think it's the interior flocked baffles deteriorating, or it's the adhesive used to fix the baffles in place deteriorating. These things happen with old cameras, especially the light sealing around the back. That often deteriorates very quickly. At the end of the film, Jeff is threatened by an intruder, the neighbour that he had suspected of murder, and he reaches for a flash gun, fitting the magnesium flash bulb into it. You had to fit flash bulbs, single flash bulbs, into them and fire them one at a time. Take the spent one out, put the new flash bulb in. And he fires it at the intruder, very quickly changing the flash bulbs. Fires it at the intruder in an attempt to blind him. The flash gun that he has to hand is actually the Graflex 37FA flash unit, which would accompany and fit onto a Speed Graphic or Crown Graphic film camera, field camera, which is quite a large format camera, really, but handheld. Now that shoots onto cut sheet film, and it is also the flash gun that he's firing at the intruder. It's also the flash gun, or at least the handle part of the flash gun, is what was used to build the props a couple of decades later for a film called The Star Wars. So, have a very good Friday, and take some cool pictures. Like and subscribe if you like, and if you want to subscribe. As I say, have a very good Friday, have a very good weekend, have fun. Rear Window, 1954.